members of the committee. This is the September Planning Committee, and good evening to those that are watching on YouTube. Before we start the meeting properly, just a bit of housekeeping really. Can you all keep your microphones off and only turn them on when you're indicated to speak, and turn them off immediately after. There will be no fire drill because we're in our own home, so if you hear your fire alarm, sort yourself out. Anyway, we'll get on to the agenda properly. So we'll start with apologies. Please, Jason.
Yeah, we've received apologies for absence from Councillors Bull and Purdy, and Councillors Froggatt and Finesse are here as substitutes.
Thank you very much, Jason. As you know, this is the first planning committee Jason Spencer has done. He's now joined us at the committee section, and I'd like to welcome him to Derbyshire Dales. Anyway, moving swiftly on, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I therefore move. Second, somebody? Donnelly, yeah? Can everybody raise their hands? They're passed. Item 3, interest. Any member declaring interest? I've not had any. I don't know whether anybody wants to table something.
Yeah, I have got an interest. I've got a non-pecuniary interest in that a relative of mine lives on Eaton Close. I've checked with James McLaughlin. It's okay for me to join the debate and to vote, but I will not discuss anything to do with Eaton Close. Right?
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Pawley. So, item 4, public participation, as you know, is been slightly it's been suspended temporarily. So, if there is any public participation for the item to discuss, the officers will bring that to your attention when they address the item. So, we'll move on to item 5, application for determination. So the first application is 541, application 19/00159. It's a reserve matters for application of approval of appearance, layout, landscape and scale of erection of 39 dwellings for off the back of outline permission 14/00 out.
We've not signed in, have we? Give us names. Attendance.
I'll tell you what, then we'll go through the turn, but I think everybody's here, Peter. If that's what you do, I'll just ask Jason to give out a roll call then before we get on to the main body of the report. Jason, if you'd just like to do that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I've been ticking people off as they came in, but okay. Councillor Archer.
Yes, here.
Atkin.
Yeah, here.
Bright.
Here.
Councillor Sue Burford.
Here.
Councillor Buttle.
Here.
Yeah. Councillor Donnelly.
Here.
Councillor Elliott.
Here.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
Here.
Councillor Froggatt.
Here.
Councillor Finesse.
Here.
Councillor Lees.
Here.
Councillor Pawley.
I'm here.
Yep. And Councillor Slack.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
It's everyone, Chair.
Okay, can I just make it clear, Chair? This is the item that I have the interest in. Sorry, I didn't say.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. Item 5.1. Anyway, we've gone through the particulars, so I'll hand over to John Bradbury to introduce this application. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can see a screen referring to application 19/00159, reserve matters. Let me just get an aid to help me highlight these images as they go through. Okay. I'll just talk you through this. It's an application for the reserve matters. You'll see that the outline permission was originally a 14 reference application. It was an application that was originally refused by the council and went to appeal. It's one where we weren't able to defend our position on appeal, and outline permission was granted by the planning inspectorate on this particular scheme. So all we're looking at, we're not looking at the principle of development here. We're looking at whether the siting, appearance, landscaping, etc. of this scheme, the reserve matters, are acceptable in terms of a scheme that fits into the locality. The outline permission was for up to 48 dwellings during the consideration of the application and following pre-application discussions, it was apparent that it would be very difficult to successfully put 48 dwellings on this particular site. So as it was up to 48 dwellings, the provision of 39 dwellings fits within the outline description of development. I'll run through these slides, if I may. Give me a second. Okay, you can see the application site here. It's 2 fields on the fringe of Hulland Ward village. The site immediately to the southwest of that land highlighted is currently being developed by another residential development known as Big in View. You can see the site here. The point of access that's been approved by the planning inspectorate is down this cul-de-sac, which is called Wheeldon Way, which leads off Ashes Avenue off the estate here. Eaton Close lies immediately to the southwest, and the ground rises from northeast down to southwest. You see the contours on that plan to illustrate that point, and here you've got the layout of the proposed development. You'll see again access in off Wheeldon Way. Off that access route, you can either turn left up the hill. We've got a combination of 2-storey dwellings sat either side of an access road, and then at the top of the turning head here, we've got a row of 8 properties. Those 8 properties are the social housing units within the scheme. We've got six dwellings and a pair of bungalows at one end closest to existing buildings. If you turn right and go down the site on the more gently sloping element of the land, you've got a loop road which serves the remainder of the dwellings. The dwellings closest, which back onto properties on Ashes Avenue, are dormer bungalows. I'll show you an image of those in the future, but basically the dormer windows face to the northwest, and on the rear roof slope there are no projecting elements. On the northwest side of that loop road, we've got 2-storey dwellings, estate houses, and then we've got estate houses 2-storey at the bottom side. Those are the largest of the properties. Through the site, we've got a sinuous open space which leads down from the northwest right down through and across to the northeast of the site. That will allow a linkage, a footpath linkage from the Big in View housing development through down to the public playing fields, which are maintained by the parish council in the northeast corner of the site there. But there's also a drainage easement in this bottom corner of the site. Okay, let's click through a few more images. So in terms of how the site runs with the land, the second top image here shows the slope of the site from the top corner, the southwest corner. It's quite steeply sloping land, so the buildings step down the contours, and that continues down the remainder of the development to the bottom corner. The image at second bottom here is the line of detached properties at the lowest point of the site, down near the recreation ground, and this image at the bottom of the screen is the social housing at the top of the site. So you've got a pair of bungalows and then 6 properties alongside that. I referred to the bungalows that back on to Ashes Avenue. And I'll just go back to show you where those are again, just to remind you. So those are the properties, this run of properties here. Ashes Avenue is bungalow development, a lot of them fairly modest in size. And it was always a desire of the community that the development along that boundary was not too oppressive in terms of its height or proximity. So what you've got, this is the frontage of the bungalows that fronts the street scene with 2 small dormer windows in, and then the rear roof slope has 3 roof lights in, but otherwise it's a single-storey property. not quite as low in terms of the apex of the roof as existing properties, but we think it strikes a reasonable balance between getting the right amount of development on the site and protecting people's amenity. Some of the other house types on site, that's one of the larger detached properties. Some of the detached properties, I apologise for the colour of some of these images. They won't be built in black bricks. It's just the way they've come through the system. And some detached properties. And this is the development at the top of the site, the social housing. Okay, just go through these remaining images just to give you a feel for the site. So image 1 is right on the high point of the site at the south western corner. The properties here over the hedge are those on Eaton Close. This is looking down the site, and you can appreciate really quite lovely views of the countryside, looking back in the direction of Kirkhireton and Turnditch. Again, this gives you an indication of the slope of the site and the mature boundary hedges down the side. Again, right, that's the back of the lower properties on Eaton Close. That's the current hedgerow that runs through the middle of the site, part of which is to be retained. And then we're into the bottom field. That's the point of access from Wheeldon Way coming into the site. This is the nearest property, I think it's number 8. That might be number 8. And as we go down the site, you can see here that quite naturally the residents of these properties have maintained and taken advantage of the views out over the open countryside in that direction. So a lot of them have windows facing out over this particular site and the countryside beyond. This is the access route into the site down Wheeldon Way. And this is the estate road coming down from the main road through Hulland Ward. And then this is looking back up the site from the low point near where we form the footpath link through to the playing field. And this is the strip of land where the drainage run will go and the footpath link will apply. And that's the relationship with the playing field beyond. Okay, I think that's probably it for now. Chair, I'll stop sharing that with you and we'll get on with the rest of the debate. While I just come out of that, just to bring you up to speed with representations, there are some further representations that have been circulated as and put on the website. We've had representations from local residents, some of whom obviously wish to maintain their objection to the proposal. There's a request that we maintain the footpath link, which is part of the scheme. We've also had clarification from Hulland Ward Parish Council that of the issues that they've raised in the report, the only 3 that remain of concern to them are that number 8 Ashers Avenue being indemnified against any damage during the creation of the drainage system adjacent to their property. So that's the one actually at the bottom of the site. And the developers are asked to review whether they couldn't put an element of public car parking at the top of the site near to the entrance. And the developers have further requested again to look at the heights and position of properties 19 to 24, and those are the ones that sit closest to Eaton Close. I think that's it, Chair, for me for now. So happy to take member questions.
Right, thank you very much, John. Right, members' questions. So I've got Robert Archer first.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question. It seems that obviously the dormer bungalows have been planned in lower down the development, but looking at the plans there higher up the development on the back of Eaton Close there, it looked like the houses on the development are a similar distance away, and yet they are not planned to be dormer bungalows. I was just wondering why that was. I think you mentioned one of the objections there as well is to do with the height of the properties near Eaton Close. So is there a particular reason why dormer bungalows were planned for the lower part of the development, but were not planned for further up, backing onto Eaton Close?
Self? Yeah, two reasons behind this. First of all, the properties on Eaton Close generally have longer rear gardens. There are greater separation from the site boundary than is the case as you go down Ashes Avenue. The ones down Ashes Avenue have got relatively restricted gardens, so a larger property closer to the boundary will be more imposing on them. I think it's also true to say that the properties on the upper part of the site step down the contours a little bit more, so they're relatively speaking at a slightly reduced ground floor height than those further down the site. So all things being equal, the separation and the relative elevation of the properties higher up the site was considered to be acceptable on its merits. I think it's also true that, you know, developers are prepared to accept a housing mix on a site, but they don't want the local authority to completely dictate what happens, and they have to have regard to what the marketplace will find attractive, and we then need to assess whether that works in terms of amenity, and we think it does in this instance, the split of dwellings.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Mrs. Birdfoot.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think members know that I'm always concerned about materials being used in new build. Just a small point, I notice it says under 7.9, the report says the elevations are brick. Does the mean all? That's the first question. And the second sort of point is where it says in the notes to applicant that the Fire and Rescue Service recommend installation of domestic sprinkler systems. Have we had any indication from the developer that they would consider putting them in? Obviously, they're much cheaper at build stage. Thank you.
Yeah, in relation to the first point that you raise about brick, my understanding is the intention is to use a brick throughout the development. The adjoining development, Ashes Avenue and the likes, is predominantly brick, and I think that's the right way to go. It's just getting the right tone for this particular site. In terms of sprinkler systems, we've been around this argument a few times with the fire service. Historically, it's something that we can suggest to a developer that they consider, but I don't think under the planning legislation it's something that we can insist upon in terms of a condition. So that's why we revert to an advisory footnote, and I don't know whether the developer will or won't in this instance take up that suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Mrs. Pauly.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I've got 4 questions actually, but 2 relate to the same subject, so it's really 3. Could you tell me, is all the housing that's being dropped affordable housing? That's the first question. The second one and the fourth is concerning the water drainage. Can you tell me why they've moved from surface water ponds to underground storage, and that involves the pumping station, and there were comments about the noise which might affect the gentleman at number 8 Ashes Avenue, so I'm wondering if you can confirm that the noise levels of a pump going will not affect that gentleman. And the third one is to do with the raising of the land at Biggin View. Are we absolutely certain that the same thing's not going to happen at this site, and therefore this problem with the bungalows might be made a little worse for the people who are living on the roads that they're going to back onto? Those are my questions. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can try and answer these as best I can. The affordable housing hopefully that came across, is the 8 units at the southwest, the high point of the site. The remainder of the 45% affordable housing that was secured off the back of the outline permission, which obviously exceeds the current plan requirement, that is to be provided in the form of a social housing financial contribution. So it yields something close to £250,000 to be spent on schemes in the future. Hulland Ward in recent times has benefited from quite substantial social housing provision at Big in View, at a site called Les Ardennes on the main road, and this is the third site coming forward. So by taking a financial contribution, we can continue to provide into the future rather than taking units at this moment in time. In terms of the drainage arrangement has been amended during the consideration of the application. When it first came in for consideration, we had large underground tanks at the bottom of the site. Most of the drainage now is SUDS compliant and involves a series of features within the central open space that I showed you, little low barriers that will retain water coming back up the hill in serious rainfall events, and help to hold the water back off the land so that any discharge from the land is no more than greenfield discharge rate. To the best of my knowledge, there won't be any great noise generated in terms of noise nuisance to neighbours from any pumping facilities that are on site. Oh, sorry, one more point, wasn't there? Big in View and the underbuild. Hopefully you appreciated from the images I shared with you that although this site slopes down from southwest to northeast, in terms of any variation in the nature of the slope across the site, there's very little variation. It's a fairly uniform contour going down the hillside. What you had with Big in View was quite a difference in contours, not just coming down the site from southwest to northeast, but also across the site from north. Let me just think, get my brain into this. Across the site in the opposite direction, and that has led, in terms of planning the road for that development, for the need to underbuild to one side of that road. It shouldn't be necessary to do that. All of the house plots on this particular layout have been plotted out with indicative ground floor positions, and that ties in with the highway layout and the drainage layout, so there shouldn't be any significant underbuild.
Right, thank you. And the last on my list of questions is Councillor Peter Slack.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions. The first one is, again, I noticed there's no solar panels attached to this development. It'd be nice if there was. I know it's with no ways of we can encourage them, but we can't force them. I know at this stage. But and also my second question is, the native hedgerows, will the extra hedges be the same native species?
Yeah, taking the second point first, Councillor Slack, the intention will be to encourage native planting to supplement and retain what's there. In terms of renewable energy on this development, we're in a weak negotiating position because the outline permission was granted some considerable time ago before the before the new local plan policy emerged. So we've asked the developer, they've made some concessions to try and reduce energy usage and encourage sustainability, and hopefully during the build process they will take the opportunity to do more than is necessary, but we've pushed it as far as we can.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. I've now got Councillor Buttle. Neil?
Yeah, sorry about that. Not very good at unmuting. Hi, John. Hi, Jason. Hi, everyone. I've got a couple of questions. The first one, John, was to do with the actual plan and your description of there being 8 affordable homes, and running across the top of the hill, I can see 9 houses. that sort of, there's number 39, 38, 37, 36, etc. So there are, it looks like there are 8. Is one of those not an affordable house? So that's the first question. There was a question again about the affordable ones about air source heat pumps. Was there any chance of the planners being asked to, not the planners, the applicant being asked to include an air source heat pump for the affordable homes? And there was a mention of Swift bricks, which I loved. I really loved the idea of Swift bricks. Do we know how many are planned? Are we having them in like 3 in one house or 30 across the entire site? And that's kind of where I've got to so far. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Buttle. I'll try and cover the points you've raised. You are correct. There are more than 8 units across that southwestern top edge of the site. There are actually 10 at that point. The two on the end on the far corner are a pair of flats. So one of the remaining pair of dwellings on there are market dwellings. So we've got 2 flats, 6 affordable dwellings and a pair of dwellings, but 8 in total of those are affordable. In terms of air source heat pumps, it's been raised with the developer. There is a willingness to look at that, but as is often the case with developments like this, the final agreement in terms of finding a registered social landlord to take on the units isn't in place yet, and it will at least in part depend on the attitude of the registered social landlord as to whether they can go forward with that as a proposal. In terms of the Swift bricks, I'm not actually sure how they're going to be distributed. That's something that we'll need to work through as and when we discharge the conditions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last on my list for questions is Councillor Finesse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The question is about the affordable housing, and I noticed that they have not got any arrangement as yet with a housing association. John, do they have plans to have a housing association involved, or are they going to try and sort of let them themselves or sell them themselves? And are they affordable housing? Is it going to be for rental or is it going to be for part purchase?
Yeah, under the terms of the original Section 106 agreement, it does specify both the nature of that affordable housing and also how it's going to be subsequently let. So everything has to come through the council, and our strong intention would be to line up those units to be taken over by an RSL in due course. But we're in charge in terms of having to sign off on where those units are given to. Sorry, what was the second question again?
I've forgotten. Yes, I have forgotten. I can't remember what the second question was. I'm sorry.
I'd written it down.
Right, in which case then now what I'm going to move is to debate. And Councillor Bright.
Thanks, Chair. Well, as ward member, I've had a lot of history with this application. I was the one that took it all the way through to appeal. Through to the inspector to try and get the decision to back up our decision to turn this application down, because I felt that the access was poor and that it had a massive impact on the visual appearance of the village. But we lost that appeal, and I just want to say that I think the developer has worked incredibly hard alongside the planning committee, the parish council to try and get the best out of this development. So, you know, they had planning for 48 dwellings. They've now taken that down to 39. They have listened. It's not perfect, and I wish it could be a perfect development for the people in my ward, but I'm not sure we're ever going to get to a perfect development. So with that in mind, I think I'm actually going to take this and move the officer's recommendation to accept this going forward, because I think it's a good example of how a small community has worked with a developer to get a good sustainable development. So, you know, Hulland Ward has taken its more than fair share of housing, and it's done it in a good way. So I'll be wanting to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bright. Does that find a seconder? Councillor Fitzherbert.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second Councillor Bright to approve the application. And I've learned something tonight about Swift bricks, which I'm afraid I didn't know about. I had to look that up, Neil. I beg your pardon. So I've learned something about Swift bricks, and I think 3 per house would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzherbert. I've got nobody else on my list, so it's been moved and seconded for approval. So now, Jason, if we could go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. If you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining on approval. Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Bright.
For.
Hang on, I got muted there. Councillor Burford.
For.
Councillor Buttle. Sorry, Councillor Buttle.
For.
Okay. Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
For.
Councillor Froggatt.
For.
Councillor Finesse.
For.
Councillor Lees.
For.
Councillor Pawley.
For.
And Councillor Slack.
For.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So that's been passed for approval. So moving swiftly on to item 5.2. This is application number 20/00104 full at Callow Hall Country House Hotel, Mapleton Road, Mapleton. It's the erection of 11 woodland cabins with associated creation of additional woodland area and supplementary planning. And I believe this is one of John's going to do the presentation for this. So hand over to John.
Hopefully, Chair, you've got an image on the screen. Let's get something to help me annotate. Okay. We've got a site at Callow Hall, which is a Grade 2 listed building, very fine property on the outskirts of Ashbourne on the road to Mapleton, approached up a long driveway. Grade 2 listed building, and the surrounding land around it is part of a conservation area, which was created to protect both the building and its landscape. So the area of the ancient woodland that's referred to in the report is this irregular shaped parcel of land to the northwest of Callow Hall. You'll also see in the report references made to an area of land to be planted up as a new woodland, that's in the southwest corner, and an area is to be recreated as a sort of parkland stroke meadow, and that is the area of land immediately to the south of Callow Hall. Let's go through these images. Okay. Let's go back one. So what's proposed with this application is, in association with the operation of Callow Hall as a country hotel, they want to create 11 woodland lodges within the woodland, within the ancient woodland. There are some existing tracks through this woodland, relatively modest in nature, sort of levelled dirt tracks. You can walk around it. The topography of the woodland, it tends to be of a flatter area along the sort of northern boundary. There's agricultural land here to the north, agricultural land to the northwest as well. The woodland slopes in this northwest corner down towards the road to Mapleton. It slopes more steeply in the eastern part of the woodland as it comes down in the direction of Callow Hall. And you'll see that in the some of the contour plans that are on here. So within this woodland area, what it's intended to do is to create raised walkways that link 11 cabins sat within the woods. These walkways are supported on steel screws, so they physically put a steel screw into the ground and carefully position that to avoid, where possible, tree roots and other features, and then they support on that timber cabin structures which sit independent of any trees off the ground. So the cabin footprints vary in size. What they've tried to do with this is find existing gaps within the woodland cover to site these cabins within. So they have varying designs, which I'll show you in the next few images, from relatively modest cabins to a couple which are the sort of deluxe cabin, which is looks a bit like a hunting lodge from Kenya or somewhere similar. So we'll just go through these, and you can see this is an image of how the cabins would sit within the woodland. Obviously, with for the clarity, it's had the trees removed to show you how they would sit, looking from the east of the site, looking back towards Callow Hall with the slope of the ground. And that's looking at the cabins with the trees removed that sit at the top of the site, almost sort of behind Callow Hall itself. These are typical drawings of the cabins, and that's one of the more modest ones. They're built in different sorts of timber on this timber platform, and they have aluminium glazing within the windows, which is designed to sort of with the glass designed to try and reduce light glare from it. These cabins are connected into the walkway, so you don't have to climb up to one of these. You'll have reasonably level access to them. Go through these images, and this is one of the more deluxe cabins with its own staircase up, and these are timber shingles on the conical roof. Okay, just get some images of in and around the site. So this is the image some of you may recognise, looking from a footpath which leads off Bellevue Road in Ashbourne and goes over the hill down towards Mapleton. So you have falling land between you and the river at the bottom of the valley there, and you can see Callow Hall poking between the trees, and the lodges would be sat in the woodland, some sort of perched higher up in the woodland there, and then the main group in this section of woodland to the left-hand side. That's the driveway access to the hall. This is the Parkland meadow. It's currently improved grassland, and it's grazed and a crop of grass taken off it. It's got one Parkland tree that you can see there. The intention would be to increase biodiversity in that field by planting further isolated trees and also introducing a better grass mix into that meadow. And then to the left-hand side of the field in front of the woodland, the intention would be to create a new woodland to enhance what's there. Again, it's fairly standard grassland for the area, although it's very nutritious for animals. It's not particularly ecologically diverse, and the intention would be to improve that as well. These are fairly typical views within the woodland. It's a mix of woodland in there. It's got an ancient woodland designation. There's a fair amount of ash trees within it. There's oak, quite a lot of sycamore, and there's quite a lot of sort of ground cover of mixed species, some rhododendron, some other invasive species. And the intention is to utilize the gaps within the woodland largely to site these particular holiday lodges, try and work with the trees rather than take a lot of them out. Okay, I think that probably gives you an overview. Happy to take member questions. I'm sorry, I just need to do the updates as well, but then I'll go on to member questions. In terms of the public representations on this particular scheme, since we produced the report, we've had further representations from the applicant's agents that hopefully you've had the chance to consider, and we've had 2 letters from other parties wishing to support the application. Happy to take member questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, John. Councillor Elliott. You'll have to turn your microphone on, Graham. Sorry.
Sorry, mate. Yeah. John, is it the intention to have all the cabins on stilts of various heights?
Yes, they all sit above ground level. The height may vary depending on the immediate contours around them, but they're all supposed to sit above the level of the woodland, and part of that fits in with the whole concept of creating these raised walkways, and within the raised walkways you have most of the services, and the intention is to, by doing that, to minimise the disturbance to the floor of the woodland.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Councillor Finesse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't really understand the position of the walkways. Are they at ground level, or are all the walkways at the level of the cabins?
Yeah, the walkways will sit above ground level, so the woodland isn't on flat ground, so the height of the walkway will vary as you go through the woodland, and will give access into the cabins and their platform at a reasonable gradient. But I'm sure they'll within that concept there'll be an attempt to minimise the unnecessary raising of the walkways above ground level. It's only what's necessary to get in safely into the cabins.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pawley.
Yes, John, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to have a word about the assertion in the recent papers we've received from the applicant that they took pre-application advice and paid for that, and were told that by the conservation and landscape officers that there potentially was no reason why these cabins couldn't be built. They would be acceptable. What's changed since then, and can you just explain that so that we can understand that, please?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why the pre-application advice was perhaps a little bit more positive than is reflected in the report is, at the time we gave that pre-application advice, for some unknown reason, the ancient woodland designation that applies to this particular site had not been plotted on our mapping system. And the case officer that dealt with the pre-application scheme, as a result, had not picked up on the fact that it had an ancient woodland designation. Now, the ancient woodland designation, as you'll see, is one of the reasons why we're concerned about that, but it also adds another layer of importance to the heritage asset, the fact that we've got this undisturbed woodland that forms the backdrop to the listed building and the conservation area.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Mrs. Burford.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not very clear about the status of ancient woodlands. So, are they protected in law? That's the question.
They are protected in terms of the planning legislation. So you'll see in the report we refer to a particular paragraph within the National Planning Policy Framework that gives a high degree of protection against new development within those ancient woodlands. That's not to say that somebody couldn't go into that woodland and remove trees as part of a woodland management regime. It's not an absolute protection on individual trees as you have with, say, a tree preservation order.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tom Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. John, what will be the view from, as we look up from Mapleton Road, what will be the perception of that? Thank you.
I think the applicants have put a lot of work in terms of trying to minimise the visibility of these lodges. They've tried to pick locations within the woodlands that maximise the screening. My own view is that during the summer months, views of the cabins will be relatively limited. The fact that we've got a tree belt around it and the fact that the trees are in leaf will minimise visibility. I have more concerns of visibility, both in terms of how the lodges will be viewed in the winter months when the leaves are off the trees. I think they will be more visible, and also obviously there'll be an element of visibility caused by the lighting within the cabins and people accessing the cabins through the woods. I can't give you a definitive view because I don't have the information from the applicants to fully sort of assess that in terms of landscape and visual impact assessment in that level of detail. But that is, you know, my feeling, having visited the site and looked at the locations of those cabins. They well screened in summer, an element of visibility in winter.
Thank you, John. So near you know very well, actually.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lees.
My questions have been answered, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last on my list is Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. It's very unusual, this is, John. I've never seen anything like this before. Is it one of the ideas is to lift these up to save trees, or is it an easier way to build in sloping grounds and such? And is there anything like this anywhere else in the country? Is it a new concept?
I think it's a relatively new concept. I think if you travel around the country, there are other sites where people effectively can holiday in. I mean, it's not right to call it a tree house because they're not physically attached to the trees, but they're cabins set within a tree environment, and part of the attraction is to be raised off the ground as part of that experience. I mean, more typically, when we've dealt with this kind of development around the district, we have had developments of lodges, sometimes to replace caravans within a woodland environment, but often we've had a very deep belt of woodland on a relatively flat site to help screen those. This is an unusual proposal in terms of, one, the contours of the site, and two, the fact that it's on sloping ground, and that does to some degree make the lodges more visible.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Buttle.
Hi, yeah. Is there any precedent for the removal of trees to build something like, whatever this is, the Ashbourne equivalent of treetops?
I think it's reasonable to look at the trees within any woodland when you're carrying out a project like this, and do some modest amounts of selective removal if the wider objective is one of good woodland management in the long run. So you would do an assessment of the quality and the nature of those species. So you might have, you know, a grouping of trees that are very close together that are frustrating the future growth of a fine specimen. So I don't think it's unreasonable to remove a modest number of trees if there was a wider environmental objective that would be served by that.
Okay, I've got nobody else down for questions, so I'll move into debate. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, as you know, this is in my ward in Dovedale and Parwich, and it's one of the ones that I've spent a great deal of time researching and looking at. And thank you very much to the officers for a very, very thorough report. It's a big read. Thank you very much. Obviously, the applicant has been looking at this site for quite a long time now, over 2 years. And obviously, it's unfortunate that, you know, during COVID, its determination target in our papers was the 6th of May, which didn't obviously hasn't happened, and you know, I hope we can get some sort of resolution tonight. But I think what the most important thing about this particular application is the substance. It represents, certainly to me, a huge investment in Derbyshire Dales, a huge investment in Ashbourne, as you can see in the papers, and a huge investment into our area and into local and more Derbyshire Dales wide, Peak District wide tourism businesses, etc. And it's be another fantastic, if it is approved tonight, fantastic place for people to stay in our area. I appreciate that we're not allowed site visits, you know, in this COVID-19 situation, but this is exactly the sort of place where if you know, I'm lucky enough to have been there and looked at the site, that if you'd all been there, you'd have seen why, you know, I'm going to do what I'm going to do now and go against officer recommendation. But I'd also like to say that there have been, you know, no objections from local people. They've been rather solid affirmative and very thorough letters of support from local residents. While I appreciate that it is ancient Woodland, as we've discussed, I think that certainly as far as the Derbyshire Dales goes, and on balance, that the benefits from this development will outweigh any particular harm, and there are lots of mitigating points done by the applicants in this way. Anyway, and so I'd like to move that against officer recommendation, this application is approved for the following reasons. And as you know, we have to have proper planning reasons for this. One, that the development assists the project as a viable, forward-thinking and vibrant business in a thoroughly sustainable manner in our district. Two, the impact of the development on balance is not as significant as to adversely affect the site of the ancient woodland and ecology in line with policy PD3. Three, the development will in fact enhance the status of the Grade 2 listed hall. And as you know, I'm the heritage champion, and I'm desperate for new leases for heritage and listed buildings that aren't doing anything at the moment. And this place has not done anything for 2, possibly 3 years, and it had 5 owners in 10 years before that couldn't do anything with it. This is a chance to keep it going. This is a chance for it to survive. To finish 3 and give it a sustainable income for its future well-being and upkeep in line with policies S4, PD1, PD2, PD5, EC8 and EC9. And fourthly, that we delegate authority to officers that they agree the appropriate conditions to secure the beneficial elements, including the precise locations of the units in this wood. I commend this application and I hope that you will join me, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzherbert. Councillor Lees.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second Councillor Fitzherbert's recommendations on this one. I too know the site quite well. There are quite a few rotten trees within that wood. It's been neglected, and I think this is going to be wonderful for the area, and it's going to enhance the trees that are good in that woodland. And equally, if you look at incident for like Kew Gardens, they've actually got a rope walk within the trees, protected trees. They're actually in the top of the trees. So I think this is going to be good for the area, good for the woodland, and you know, there's future planting within the scheme. And it's nice to see that people will be walking to these lodges rather than driving cars through the woodlands. You know, we've got quite a few caravan sites within Derbyshire Dales that are actually in woodlands, and people are driving the vehicles in there, and this is going to be walked access, and I think it's very good for the area, tourism and Derbyshire Dales. So I second Councillor Fitzherbert's motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lees. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I find this very balanced, really, this application. On one hand, we've got the economic side with employment and finance coming into the area. And also, I do appreciate that these walkways are far better than cars driving up to the woodland chalets. Far better. It's more environmental. But on the other hand, ancient forests have been disappearing in our country for quite a long while, and we do need to preserve these ancient forests very much so. So I do find this very balanced indeed, and I'm going to listen to the rest of the councillors with their views before I decide. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. The next on my list is Councillor Pawley.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Slack. It's a very fine balance, this one, very difficult. I haven't finished making up my mind, but I'm veering towards not supporting the recommendation because of the employment and the economic issues that are involved, especially if we take up what Councillor Fitzherbert said and delegate officers to work with the applicants as to where these will go to make sure that we do as little damage as possible. So if there is any chance that one of them is going to create major harm, then perhaps we could negotiate moving slightly to another part of the woodland where it would do less damage. If that happened, I'd be very happy. But I'm moving towards not going with the refusal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pawley. Councillor Buttle.
Hi, yes. I actually spent a while in these woods yesterday afternoon, and they are absolutely lovely. There's no doubt about it. There's some fantastic oaks. There's some, you know, it's got quite a lot of sycamore and other stuff as well, but it really is a well-grown wood. And I'm kind of worried that if we start hacking our way into ancient woodland, then we're kind of on a slippery slope. If we could have just had 1, 2 and 3 and possibly 4, they would have been on the site. They would have been kind of in there without it being a big chunk right in the middle of the bit that's really quiet. So I'm not going to support it, but I can imagine that living there, being there, going there on holiday would be fantastic. And I do support the idea of lots of people sort of support. I don't want Ashbourne to thrive, but I think just that bit over the top there, I think it's just an ask too much. So I don't think I will be supporting it, even though I can see all sorts of good things about it.
Thank you very much. Next on my list is Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I will be supporting Councillor Fitzherbert's proposal because knowing the area very, very well over the years, and I think it's too good an application to turn down, really, basically for the tourists, for the economy of Ashbourne and district. I think it's an excellent application. Knowing the wood very well, as for many, many times in that wood, but not necessarily picking blackberries, but it's a very good, very, very good place to be, really, I can assure you. So I will be supporting Councillor Fitzherbert's application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. Really want to echo what Councillor Pawley said, really. I would like to, when I first heard of this scheme, I thought it sounded like a really good, innovative scheme that I would like to support. When you read the report from the Woodland Trust and the Wildlife Trust, they raise major concerns. So I would like very much to support the application and support this scheme going through. I know it's past questions, but to what extent are we able to, if we pass this tonight and say and approve it going ahead, to what extent are we able to have input, or officers able to have how much input and influence can they have on the development to ensure that any damage done to this woodland and the wildlife is minimised?
John, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, I will, Chair. I think it's absolutely vital if members support this, that we have the relevant conditions in place to secure the appropriate management regime for this woodland, to secure the planting of the new woodland, to help the planning balance, and also to secure the reinstatement of a wildflower meadow in front of the hall itself with parkland trees. I also think, as I think was in the recommendation on the table from Councillor Fitzherbert, that we need to agree the fine siting of any units, and particularly those that sit in the middle of the woodland on the slope. There are wildlife interests in that particular locality, and it'd be very important to make sure that any impact on that is kept to an absolute minimum, and that helps the planning balance in terms of the recommendation before you.
Thank you very much, John. The last I've got down is Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I have to agree with Councillor Fitzherbert and Councillor Lees, and I'll definitely be supporting Councillor Fitzherbert's motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Elliott. So I've got nobody else down my list. So it's been moved and seconded for approval, which is against officers' recommendations. So that's put for approval with the three very, very nicely put reasons by Councillor Fitzherbert. So for now we'll move to the vote, but this is for approval against officers' recommendation. So Jason, can you start the vote, please?
Chair. Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Bright.
For.
Councillor Atkin.
Against.
Councillor Burford.
Against.
Councillor Buttle.
Against.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
For.
Councillor Froggatt.
For.
Councillor Finesse.
For.
Councillor Lees.
For.
Councillor Pawley.
For.
And Councillor Slack.
Against.
I make that 10 for and 3 against, Chair.
So the motion for approval has been carried. Thank you very much. Moving swiftly on to item 5.3. As you know, this has bounced back to committee. It was on a couple of months ago. So this is application number 20/00255 for 4 St John Street, Wirksworth, exchange of use and conversion from former bank use class A2 to 8 number apartments with a new rear extension. So let the officer introduce it. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Chair. Just take you through these slides. As you can see, we're dealing with the change of use and conversion of a former bank to create 8 apartments in the centre of Wirksworth, just outside the main shopping area. Okay, so you see the corner site there, hatched in pink.
John, you're not actually sharing your screen at the moment.
No, bear with me.
Sorry to be a pain.
It's all right. Is that with you?
Lovely.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so we've got a corner site there within the main shopping area, and it actually got an area of car parking immediately to the south that you access through a stone archway. As is typical of a lot of the centre of Wirksworth, we've got a very tight relationship between existing buildings. I'll come on to that. So this is the existing premises, built I think originally as a townhouse, 3 stories with rendered walls. That's the one of the main elevations, and that's the other main street elevation. And you can see on the main road through Wirksworth the archways through which you get to the car parking area. You've got the rear of the building below here, which is quite functional in appearance. It's got an existing fire escape on it, and this is the elevation that faces the immediate neighbours. Let's carry on through here. So hopefully you can pick up on this. In addition to the conversion of this building, part of that proposal involves an extension to the building, a 2-storey extension, which sits within the yard area on the site of the former on the site of the existing fire escape, and relatively close to the boundary with the immediate neighbour. There's a gap of about 0.8 of a metre from the existing end wall of the property. You can see the existing floor plan there, and the proposed floor plan. So within this property, most of the flats are created within the existing fabric. One of the units is a separate residential unit created in this projecting element here, and this is the extension element coming in the back corner. As part of the applicant's submission, they did extensive shadow studies. I won't try and explain those to you. Hopefully you've had the chance to view those in terms of the information that's been forwarded to you. I'll come back to my own assessment of what the impact is in due course. But this is using a technique that's not actually part of our local plan. It's the Building Research Establishment sort of guidelines on how you assess the impact of development on neighbours. Okay, so bear with me. Right, the important bits, just get through these photographs. So as you can see, 3-storey cream rendered building. This is the route down the causeway. We've got 2 immediate neighbours here whose properties you access through a ginnel down the side there. This is the vehicle access into the rear yard to what was the bank premises. And we're around the back of the property now, and the immediate neighbours have their privacy protected at the moment by quite a high boundary wall that bounds the car park. So within this area here, this is property number 15, Causeway Lane, and this property here is 15A. Within the courtyard, and I'll show you in a moment, we've got an outbuilding which is in the ownership of number 15, and we've got a right of access to the rear of 15A. 15A has a ground floor kitchen window and a first floor bedroom window, and then the access continues down the side of this property to lead into a rear garden. Just bear with me while I got my little annotation tool. So, go to that point again. So yeah, within the courtyard, we've got an outbuilding. We've got a ground floor window that sits behind that wall, and serving a kitchen, and the doorway in, first floor window serving a bedroom, and then there's a ginnel way that links down into the garden to number 15A. Okay, so we're in the little courtyard of 15A. This is a railing going to some steps to a rear lounge window in number 15, the immediately adjacent property. Number 15A, as I explained, has a kitchen window here, a doorway, and that's the first floor window. The access to the garden goes off to the left of that image. It's a very small courtyard. I mean, you can see there's a plant here and plants there, but it's not used as a significant amenity area. It's not an area where you would spend a great deal of time, even though it's quite attractive. Okay, that's looking over the top of the wall. There's the first floor window there. This is the lounge window to number 15 with the step down. As you can see, this image tries to show the existing relationship between number 15, which is here, and the bank premises. So the bank premises, by virtue of their existing presence, have quite a dominant impact on the amenity of number 15, and also on the way you experience the courtyard at the back of the 2 properties. And this image shows the garden area to number 15A. So once you come down the passageway, you come into quite a nice little garden area that is unencumbered by close buildings and gets quite a lot of sunlight and attractive amenity space that's accessed through a door from, this is the lounge, to that property. And that's a view out over the over the rooftops to a recent development beyond. And I think that's it in terms of the slideshow. If I just stop sharing that, and I can just update you in terms of the late representations. We've had one late representation from one of the immediate neighbours, Amanda Pike, that's summarised in the representations that have been shared with you and put on the website. So at that point, Chair, I'm happy to take member questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Slack.
Sorry, Chair, I struggled to get on. Yes, it was deferred a few months ago, and I can't see a vast lot of difference from what's come now, really. It's more or less the same application, is that correct, John? That's one question. The other question is, some of the neighbours were complaining about the light. Would there be less light now than what it were previously with the bank there? Because it's always been a pretty dark area at the back there. Would you consider there'll be less light when this new extension is put on? The two questions there, John.
Yeah. Just for explanation, so everybody understands. Yes, the item was previously prepared as a committee report. We got some fairly strong representations from immediate neighbours that they didn't feel that the report was thorough enough in terms of the analysis that had been undertaken on the impact on their amenity. And I had a good look at the report, and I felt that there were some gaps that needed filling in terms of not just relying on an assessment of sunlight and overshadowing. So, you know, we have to assess how the extension to this property whether it would take away sunlight to the surrounding properties, but we also need to have regard to the impact it has on daylight and the overbearing impact it has by being close to the boundary of the properties and their amenity areas. So that we withdrew the application from the committee last time, so that those issues could be incorporated into the report. The proposal in terms of what the applicants put to us hasn't changed. They've done some further analysis in terms of daylight impacts. I went on site, I met with the applicants and met with the neighbours and viewed the scheme from their particular properties. And I came to the conclusion, all things being equal, that whilst there is an impact, there'll be a sense of visual enclosure created by this new extension going off the back. The impact in terms of loss of sunlight, I didn't feel was particularly significant. A lot of the sunlight in the this time of year is coming into the courtyard when it does come over the roofs of buildings. Yes, there may be slightly more shading in through to the winter months, but seen in context of the very close relationships to existing buildings that exist in the centre of Wirksworth, I didn't think that relationship was an unacceptable one. It's within reason that it's something that we could support. That's not to say that the neighbours, you know, don't have a point, that it'll have a visual presence and they take exception to that, but we have to strike a balance between assessing those impacts and decide what's reasonable or not in the context, and we also have to have regard to all of the planning issues. And one of the planning issues here, of course, is that we are finding a beneficial new use for this particular build. So I came down on the side of feeling that those impacts were within reason and acceptable.
Okay, yeah. It's just to say that it's very difficult. This is one of the sites where you really would like a site visit, but we can't, obviously. But it is very difficult when you can't have a site visit. Thank you, John.
I think that's true, Councillor Slack. It's you know,
yeah.
I mean, I'd looked at the photographs before we put it to committee last time, but then I felt actually no, to properly appreciate it, I need to go on site. I need to, stand in the neighbour's kitchen and look at it And yes, ideally we would have taken members out on site to see this one, but we're not in the position to be able to do that in any organised way at this moment in time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slack. Councillor Bright.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a question to John. What, if anything, could have been done on this site through permitted development?
Well, in terms of development that includes building works, nothing without our permission is the answer to that, because it's a listed building. So any scheme that came forward to extend it would require our consent.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bright. Councillor Pawley.
I'm a little concerned about this large room that's going to be divided up, and as we haven't been on site, you haven't got any photos of that, have you? So we could sort of get a sense of how the windows are going to be. I used to live in a bedsitter that was a split room, and I know how awful it can be. So just wondered if you've got a photo of that, John.
Microphone, John. You'll have to turn your microphone on, John. Can you hear me, John? I think you need to turn your microphone on. 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen. I think there might be a bit of a technical issue, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Stop share.
Okay. Okay, Chair, I think we're back in business.
Okay. So yeah, if you'd just like to answer Councillor Pawley's question regarding the room that's been split up.
I'm just going to try and find you the image of the room if I can. Yeah, room 7 is the room 4 and room 7 are the top ones at the sort of right hand corner of the image there. The partitions are simply subdivisions of the room. Can I just clarify with you, Chair, that image is sharing with you?
Well, we haven't got an image showing at the moment, John.
Bear with me then. Bear with.
Is it something that could be answered by the listed building consent pictures?
Yeah. Hopefully now you've got an image showing. It's the top right hand corner there of the image. Rooms 4 and 7 on the first floor and second floor. They are mostly reversible works in terms of partitions to those rooms. I think it's one of these issues where sometimes in dealing with listed buildings, in finding a beneficial use and putting good elements back into the building, reinstating a central staircase, for instance, we have to accept a degree of change with age. And often a building such as this, where it started off as a townhouse and has been a bank, quite a lot of the rooms will have had their format changed in any event. So from my perspective, it's not a deal breaker in terms of the level of harm, and it's an acceptable scheme.
To answer your question, Councillor Pawley.
Yeah, I was just wondering about have both the partition bits got windows in then? Was it a large room with 2 windows? And that was really my one I was wondering about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just judging by that plan, both of the rooms that are created do have a window in. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pawley. Councillor Buttle.
Hi. Yeah, I've just been looking at this. I was looking at that plan earlier, and I was wondering about whether or not, 430 square feet is a lot for a small bedroom, well, a small flat. Do we have any statement to make about that? Like, my living room here is that size, and I've not got a bed, a bathroom, and a kitchen in it. Do we have a policy? Do we have any principles, or is it just something that they decide that's what they do and we say fine? I'm sorry about that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, we don't have a policy within the local plan that sets minimum design standards in terms of floor space for building conversions. I know that the company that are proposing this conversion are involved in a lot of conversion schemes around the country, and I think it's down to the marketplace to decide what a suitable level of floor space is for this form of development.
So just to be clear, like, we couldn't tell them if we put it into our local plan that we feel that the minimum size for a 1-bedroom flat is 500 square feet. We wouldn't be allowed to do that.
It's not something we've ever tried to do in previous local plans. I think the property developers would probably challenge that as a proposition and ask to see the underlying reasons as to why a local authority feel they're able to dictate size standards for accommodation. So whilst I can understand the point, I'm not so sure it would survive the rigours of a local plan inquiry.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for taking us off topic.
Thank you very much, members. Councillor Slack again.
Have we finished the questions now, Jason?
No, if you want me, I can move into debate now, if you like, Peter.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd like to
move into debate then.
Right. After assessing everything, and John reassuring me about the light isn't a lot different to what it would have been before, and I'd like to move this. There's a lot of 1-bedroom flats, 2-bedroom flats, which are needed in Wirksworth, very much so. And also, this is a building which, as everyone knows, it's a bank formerly, and it's been tried to be marketed, and it's not so. So I think this is a good solution for this building now, to put flats in. Yeah, with problems with parking, but we've always problems in parking in Wirksworth because we're short of car parks. Unfortunately, Ashbourne and Bakewell and Matlock are more fortunate with car parks, but that's how it is. But these being 1-bedroom flats, a lot of people probably won't have cars as going in, and may do, may not. But if everything's in Wirksworth for all the facilities and services, so they probably won't have cars, some of the people going in. So yeah, I'm pleased to move this, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Slack. Councillor Bright.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to just back up what Councillor Slack said. I think he's quite right. Wirksworth does need this sort of accommodation putting into it, and this building has been a bank, a townhouse, and now hopefully it will be a great home for people going forward. So I think it's a great way to change the use of a building. And now that my mind's been set at rest about the issues that were discussed, so I'd like to second this, please, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bright. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I mean, I agree with both previous speakers. As the Council's Heritage Champion, I did go and visit this site, and it does, sadly, the bank does look rather sad at the moment, and these listed buildings need a new life. And although it's not perfect for everyone, I think this hopefully was a good scheme, and hopefully there'll be good take up for the flats in Wirksworth. I was concerned about the parking, but that's what happens when it's in the middle of a town or something like that. And good luck to the developers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzherbert. Councillor Lees.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what's been said. Basically, it's it's bringing a building that's going into a state of disrepair back into use, and very limited on these old banks. What can be done with them? So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I've got nobody else on my list, so it's been moved and seconded for approval. So I'll go to the vote. Jason.
Thank you. Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Bright.
For.
Councillor Burfoot.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
For.
Councillor Froggatt.
For.
Rovers, new kit.
Councillor Finesse.
For.
Councillor Lees.
For.
Councillor Pawley.
For.
And Councillor Slack.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Right, so that's been passed for approval. So moving swiftly on, this is the same building, so to speak. So this application, this is item 5.4. This is application number 20/00269. This is for the conservation. So it's internal and external alterations and new area extension and partial demolition. So I'll hand back to John, because I think John's doing this as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't think there's any need to revisit the images. In terms of what's proposed here, it's the list of building works to accompany the implementation of the planning permission. There are various internal works. The positive internal works are the reinstatement of the internal stairwell within this building in its original position. Some of the negative works have been identified in terms of the partitioning of the one of the rooms. The extension is considered to be an acceptable proposal to help make this a viable and worthwhile scheme to bring the building back into use. So on balance, it's got an officer recommendation of approval. Happy to take member questions.
Any questions, members? No, in which case then I'll move straight into debate. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Can I move the recommendation, please, for list of building consent?
Yeah. Councillor Pawley.
Yes, I'd like to second the recommendation, particularly as it says in the report that this extension is going to be on the presence of a former building that was in the same place. I don't think there's an awful lot to worry about. I'd like to second it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got nobody on my list. Anybody else wanted to speak against it? No, in which case then we'll move to the vote for approval. It's been moved and seconded for approval. So Jason, if you could go down the list again for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Bright.
For.
Councillor Burfoot.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
For.
Councillor Froggatt.
For.
Councillor Finesse.
For.
Councillor Lees.
For.
Councillor Pawley.
For.
And Councillor Slack.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
So that's been passed for approval. All right, moving swiftly on again. Item 5.5. This is application number 20/00346. It's a full application. It's the Station Hotel, Station Road, Ashbourne, and it's change of use and conversion of hotel to form 6-number apartments. And I think this is Chris's baby.
It is. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for moving the item on. First thing is just to set out what is proposed, and it's the change of use and conversion of hotel to form 6-number apartments. By way of update, there's nothing to report in terms of public participation or late representations received in respect of this item. Members will, I'm pretty sure members will know this site relatively well. The building, the hotel, is prominently positioned at the junction of Station Road and King Edward Street. You can get a picture there of the full extent of the site. It's the building and associated land outlined in pink and hatched. Now, the proposal is to convert the existing hotel building to 6-number apartments. So the basement level, which you'll see when we look at the floor plans next, is to remain in general storage use. And then we're left with an arrangement of 6 apartments spread across the remaining 3 floors of the building. All those apartments are to be 2-bedroomed apartments. We have a parking area at the back of the hotel. And you can see on that plan, you've got an annex building, which has previously benefited from planning permission to be converted into residential dwellings and also flats. We have an additional parking area shown at the front of the building to serve the proposed development. So in terms of elevation, you'll note that the building addresses both Station Road and King Edward Street in terms of its architecture. It's an impressive building. Just to point out, it's not a listed building, although we have deemed it a non-designated heritage asset in the officer's report. It just also sits outside of Ashbourne Conservation Area. Now, in terms of physical alterations to the exterior of the building, we've got the existing elevations there. What the existing elevations don't show is the existing
Are you there, Chris? I've got a blank screen from Chris on my iPad.
He's frozen on mine.
Are you there, Chris?
It's frozen here.
Can you just check where John is then? Because they're both in the office.
Yeah. John, are you there? It's looking like we might have a bit of a problem in the town hall.
They both seem to have disappeared, Chair.
Right, we'll see if we can get them back.
Should we take 5 or something?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, we'll have a recess for, shall we say, come back at 20 to 8?
Yeah, thank you.
And see if we can get Jim to sort it all out. So if you'd like to get back to your seats for 20 to 8, we'll carry on. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Oh, right, yeah, we have back on.
We're just having a 10-minute recess, lads, because you disappeared, so there was an internet problem. So we're restarting at 20 to 8.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's fine. Yep, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
For about the first 3 or 4 minutes, and you were just describing the architectural quality of the building and the well, it's nothing you can do, is it?
Start fresh, I think.
Yeah.
I'll have some tea.
Now we've changed screens again. I can't see John or Chris. They seem to have gone again, Kerry.
Right, they're coming back now. Are yours? Yeah. Right, love you lots, but you've got to go.
Thanks for that, Kerry. Right, I think everybody's back. So while we've got both John and Chris back, I think we'll, if Chris wants to carry on with his presentation.
I think from the start, Jason, on that one, from what, because it broke down quite early on, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to start from the beginning, Chris.
Okay. I'm assuming are we live at this point, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we'll start afresh. So the application is for change of use and conversion of a hotel to form 6-number apartments at the Station Hotel, Station Road, Ashbourne. Now, members will be, I'm sure, familiar with this site, given its prominent position within Ashbourne. It's situated at the junction of Station Road and King Edward Street. The full extent of the site is outlined in pink and hatched on the plan that's on the screen in front of you. In terms of the block plan and the associated land, you can see here we've got a communal sort of parking area at the rear of the building. The application site doesn't include the former annex building, which has been previously converted into dwellings and flats. You've also got an additional area at the front of the building, which is for parking, additional parking area. And you can see the annex building does fall within the ownership of the applicant, but it doesn't form part of the application site area. Now, this is a plan of the existing building's elevations. What this plan doesn't show is the existing fire escape stairwell, but you'll see that on the proposed plan, which will come up next. The extent of alterations to the building include some minor changes to the configuration of that existing fire escape stairwell, and also the change to a window in this elevation here. So if members can just see the window here, the proposal is to replace that with a door, and you can also see the building addresses both Station Road and King Edward Street. The Station Road elevation, which is on the right hand side at the top of the screen, that's to have a new entrance sort of foyer area, which you'll see from the next image. So you've got the modification here, which shows the door and the separate stairwell, providing a means of fire escape. Then you've got the reconfiguration of the existing external stairwell at the rear of the building. Now you'll see from Station Road that the building presents itself as a 3-storey building. There is a sort of a basement level. The site isn't level, and the rear of the site it's viewed as a 4-storey building. The building, although it's an architecturally significant building, we deem it to be a non-designated heritage asset in the officer's report. It's not a listed building, and it does sit outside of Ashbourne Conservation Area. Now, proposal is for 6 flats. So in the basement level will be a communal storage area, and that's to take that part of the building outside of a flooding event. And because we're introducing a more vulnerable land use to the building, you'll note from the consultation responses received that was a concern of the Environment Agency, but they're happy with the proposed floor layout now that shows communal sort of storage area at the basement level, and then to have residential accommodation on the ground, first and second floors. So the proposal is for 6 apartments, 2 apartments on each floor, and all 6 apartments will have 2 bedrooms. Again, we can see that's the proposed floor layout plan there. Appreciate the quality is not great, but it is a proposal for 6 apartments, all of them having 2 bedrooms. On to images. So this is the elevation which fronts Station Road. You can see the building has 2 frontages. It addresses the corner, so you have again a quite an architecturally impressive elevation to King Edward Street. You can see there the existing external stairwell at the rear of the building. Slightly better perspective image of the building from Station Road. And here you can see the existing access to the communal parking area at the back of the building. You can see here the annex building, which has been converted to residential accommodation. That's a full-on image of the rear. And again, more images of the sort of courtyard area and the residential development that's been allowed in that location. So happy to take questions at this stage. Members may have picked up from my earlier presentation that there isn't nothing to report in terms of public participation and late representations in respect of this item. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. First on my list is Councillor Tom Donnelly. Tom, you'll have to unmute your microphone, unfortunately.
I beg your pardon, sorry. Question number 1 for Grace is, some time ago I asked for this to be brought to full planning meeting because I had ideas that it should be preserved as a community asset. That's question number 1. Question number 2 is in relation to the red line at Wirksworth. Now, some time back, the same thing happened there, and it come to our planning committee twice. So I'm a bit puzzled as why we class the red line at Wirksworth as a community asset, and yet we're looking at a similar building here, which seems to be a double standard. And the third question is, I'd have to ask is, was it assessed as was this not a viable commercial concern which could be kept going as a tourist, because we need as much tourist accommodation as we can in Ashbourne. We've only got the Travel Lodge, which is always full, and equally all other commercial buildings are full as well for what's it. So that was one of my 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Chris?
Yes, thank you. I've just had a message come up that my internet connection's unstable, so I'm hoping you'll be able to hear me. Can people still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you, Chris, yeah.
Yeah, good. I'll address those questions, Councillor Donnelly, in the order that you presented them. The Red Lion public house, and that was a listed building in the centre of Wirksworth. Now, this particular planning unit is a hotel, and the current tenants or owners of the hotel have well, they've owned it for some years now. They've owned it for since 2004. And sorry, can people still hear me?
Yeah, you're still there, Chris.
Yep. Sorry about this. We're having obviously technical difficulties at this end and stability of our sort of network connection. Yeah, so we have considered the planning unit in this case, and it is a hotel, and there was a licence bar that operated independently of that, but that ceased in 2007. Now, the hotel isn't a protected community facility in our development. However, we have asked the owners in the case to carry out or to provide marketing the building as an ongoing concern as a hotel. Now, that was marketed from 2017 for a period of time, which generated very little interest in retaining the building in its existing use as a hotel. And we're satisfied that that marketing exercise was robust and comprehensive enough to demonstrate to us that it wasn't a viable proposition to a hotelier or anyone else that was willing to take the building on as a hotel. That's a slightly different scenario to the Red Lion, in that we didn't have that level of information and evidence to underpin that decision. And obviously, this isn't although it's a non-designated heritage asset, it isn't a heritage asset with the same level of protection as the Red Lion.
Yeah, the other question was about communication with the ward members, Chris.
In terms of presenting this item to planning committee, Councillor Donnell, yes, yes. Following your call in to planning committee, we have therefore sought to present this application at the earliest opportunity to the next available planning committee. Hence why we're considering it this evening.
Thank you, Chair. I'll reserve the right to speak in the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. I will want to speak in the debate as well, but just a quick question about parking, which is my only main concern with this proposal. But I'm pleased to see it is addressed in the comments from Highways, and it also in the recommendation 7. So that reassures me a bit. But I just wondered if the location of this, in terms of parking, it is literally opposite the road from the leisure centre and the public car park there. And I am still a bit concerned about the number. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is the number of apartments and the amount of parking that's going to need. But with that car park over the road, that part of the car park directly opposite is often not well used because it's a long way from the leisure centre where people try and park nearer to the leisure centre. Is it possible to put anything in here to sort of tag on some parking permits with any of these flats so that people who might use the apartments can have a parking permit on the car park across the road, rather than sort of the already quite congested parking around the building? That's my only question.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Archer. You'll note from the block plan that was previously brought up on the screen that there is provision for an additional 6 spaces on the frontage of the building, in addition to the access to the communal parking at the rear. And the Highway Authority are happy that that provides a suitable level of parking to serve the development. And you could argue in a location such as Ashbourne, where you've got a good availability of off-street parking and public car parking facilities at your disposal, that even a car-free development on the site may be an acceptable form of development because of the access to facilities and alternative parking provision. But the parking provision to be provided on the site itself is considered adequate in this case.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Mrs. Burfoot. You'll have to unmute, Sue.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question about the parking's been answered in response to Councillor Archer. This is a very distinctive building, and one of the distinctive features on it is the brick and tiled frontage with the timber detailing. Now, particularly the brick and tiled aspect of this, can I be assured that that will not change?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Burfoot. There is a condition recommended which seeks to remove any permitted development rights to carry out alterations to the building. We appreciate that its appearance is worthy of protection. It's an important and prominent building in this location, is worthy of protection, hence why we're recommending a condition. One thought, though, is that the government has introduced new provisions to introduce additional stories to buildings to provide new residential accommodation. It may be that we strengthen the wording of that condition to prevent that without an application to us for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burfoot. Councillor Buttle.
Yeah, hi. Thanks. I was there yesterday. Again, I did a tour of the area, and the parking at the front is okay. There's no doubt about that. But the wall is quite tight up against them. If you were parked if there were 6 spaces, the left-hand one, as it were, would be right up against the wall and you'd be driving out onto a pavement. So that doesn't strike me as being terribly safe. So I'd suggest that we followed up Councillor Archer's suggestion to chase up some sort of alternative parking if possible. And there was, I just think it's a really lovely place and I wish it every success.
Thank you very much. I've got nobody else down for questions, so we'll move into debate. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Thank you. Well, I'm just looking at the figures on page 81 of the report. 2017, 650,000. It's not sold. March 2018, 600,000. May 2018, 550. December 2018, it's gone up a bit, but they still can't get any takers. This place needs a new life, surely. You know, the world has moved on. You know, I drive past it every day. There's so many other places in Ashbourne that are looking sad and dispirited at the moment. I'm sad to say because of, you know, this, that and the other, COVID, empty shops, you know, Dorothy Perkins, everything else. We've got to do something with this. If this is going to happen, which God forbid it, you know, God hopes that it will happen, then the world has evolved. It's got to move on. And I'm going to move the application, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzherbert. Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to second it. I agree with what Councillor Fitzherbert said there. I'd also just like to add, although I do take on board Councillor Donnelly's comments earlier, it's a shame that it can't carry on as a hotel. In an ideal world, we would like to have it used as a town-based tourist residence. However, it's not going to happen. I don't think. It's been on open market, as Councillor Fitzherbert said. It's not sold. And I think it's far preferable to have some people living in the town centre who will still bring business to the town centre, even though it's not tourist business, than it is for it to end up being empty. So I'm reassured to an extent by condition 7 about the parking. That's my only concern. But as long as we're happy that that condition is going to properly address the parking issue, I think this is what's needed to keep the building active and bring more people into the town, which will help businesses in the town. And I would like to second this recommendation.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Archer. Councillor Mrs. Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. More than happy to support this. I do think it's unfortunate that it can't be utilised as a hotel to boost the tourism economy. But we are where we are, and it's obviously no longer commercially viable as a hotel. So the use of the building as apartments seems very welcome. It is a sustainable location. All the facilities are there in the centre of Ashbourne, hopefully. So I'm happy to, I shall be voting to approve this application and go along with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burfoot. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, well, it looks like I'm facing defeat, I'm afraid. Yes, I go along with what has been said, really, but I won't be supporting the application, so thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Bright.
Thanks, Chair. Again, it's with sad heart, because I had a lovely pint in there once at Shrove Tide, had a lovely bar. But I will be supporting the officer's recommendation. They've tried to, it seems like they've tried to keep it going. It's a lovely building. The inside is amazing. I just hope whoever lives there has a lovely time in there. So I will be supporting it. Sadly, admittedly, but I will be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor Froggatt.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to support this. Not only is it a lovely building, but it's in a perfect situation. 4 flats, it's close to the town centre, but it's also close to the Waterside Retail Park, Leisure Centre, etc., etc. So, yeah, it's a good position and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Froggatt. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with all the speakers. It's a wonderful building. Its architecture is magnificent, but we've still got the building. Like at Wirksworth with the banks and pubs seem to be disappearing from town centres, and I'm afraid a lot of shops are going to disappear from town centres after this virus, with this virus taking its toll. So yeah, I'm more than happy to support it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slack. Councillor Finesse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is very sad to see this the station hotel going. I suppose it is the last connection with the railway, you know, which disappeared about 50, 60 years ago. And I don't know whether it'll still have a name, you know, with the railway connection on it. It'll be sad if that disappears completely. But looking at the marketing, I mean, the only people who were interested in it seemed to want to convert it anyway, you know, so there was no takers, you know, for keeping it as a hotel. So I will be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Finesse. Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, like Councillor Donnelly, I'm not happy to support this application because I don't think it's been given a fair chance in its latter years as a hotel. I think it's been neglected. I think the door's been shut more than open. So I'm not happy to support this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got nobody down on my list. It's been moved and seconded for approval. So we'll go to the vote. Jason.
Chair. Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Bright.
For.
Councillor Burford.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
Against.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
For.
Councillor Froggatt.
For.
Councillor Finesse.
For.
Councillor Lees.
Against.
Councillor Pawley.
For.
Councillor Slack.
For.
That's 11 for and 2 against, Chair.
Right, so that has been carried. Approval subject conditions. The last bit of substantive item we've got before a little bit of housekeeping is item 5.6. It's application number 20/00482. It's a full application. It's former Hallmark Tractors, Ashbourne Road, I think, Sudbury, and it's change of use from light industrial B1C to retail A1, café A3, and office B1A users. And I believe this is one of Chris's again. So, Chris, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Chair. A little bit of housekeeping before we look at the application proper. You'll note from the description of development that we're describing the existing use as light industrial B1C, and the proposal is for conversion or change of use to retail A1, cafe A3, and office B1A. There has been an amendment to the use classes order, and all of those uses described in the description of development are now within the same e-commercial use class, which would imply that what's been proposed technically doesn't need consent from the local authority. Now, that legislation has come into effect. However, officers are not satisfied that the description of the current use is 100% accurate. We'll need to seek clarification from the agent, because our knowledge of this site and my knowledge and understanding of the use of the existing building is historically it was a petrol filling station, which would have had a sui generis use, and then in more recent years it's been used as a depot building by Hallmark Tractors. And in describing the new building where the existing or the operation has moved to, we've described that as a building for B2 and B8 use. And that building does have a larger component, which is dedicated to storage and distribution use. But I think B2 use more accurately describes the current use of the building on site. Now, that has a separate use class. So the change of use of the building from B2 use to the new Class E commercial use would require planning permission. And therefore, we need to assess the application on that basis. So it's just to point out to members that we do still consider there is a change of use of the building involved, but we do need to obviously revisit the description of development in light of the amendment order that's come into effect on the 1st of September relating to uses of building and land. So I hope that's clear clear to members. Other housekeeping, you'll note from the public participation and late representation sheet that we have received comments from, I believe, David and Jane Lee. We've also received consultation or representations from someone called Jay Beeston, and they've read the submissions from David and Jane Lee, and they wholeheartedly agree with all the points made. Separate to that, we have received representations from another local resident, James Bennett, and again, Mr. Bennett does agree with the comments of and fully supports the comments of David and Jane Lee. So moving on to the application, I should be sharing my screen at the moment. There we go. So the application site includes the former depot building. You can see the full extent of the site outlined in pink and hatched on the survey map that's on the screen. Again, the extent of the application is shown highlighted red. You can see that you've got existing residential development surrounding the site. You've got to the northwest the location of the application for redevelopment of that dogleg, that part of the site which doglegs for housing development. So then you can see to the north of the existing residential development, you've got the new depot building, which is the big building outlined in black and greyed out on that particular plan. Now, this is a proposed block plan, so you can see the proposals for parking. So the building is to remain with only modest alterations, material alterations to the building, which are set out in the report. You can see the parking provision to serve the proposed development. You can see here that the building, in terms of its general form and appearance, doesn't change that significantly. So we have existing elevations there and proposed elevations. So you can see the addition of a new window in this location here. You can see the removal of roller shutter doors in the north elevation, the introduction of some glazing, and south elevation and west elevation, again, mainly alterations to windows and doors. Now you can see the layout of the original building. It was laid out as a workshop and a sort of sales area and office space. The proposed layout, I understand there isn't any indication of end users, but the proposal is for a shop area, a cafe area, which includes a kitchen and food prep area, and also at first floor you can see two offices, two relatively modest offices proposed as well. So views of the building, you can see the access here onto the main road. You can see the vacant depot building. You can see the elevation which contains the roller shutter doors, which are to be replaced with windows. You can see both entrances to the site. You can recall the historic use as a petrol filling station there with two accesses. And you've got the residential property here, just immediately to the south of the building, and then houses to the north. And that brings us to the end of the photographs and the presentation for that item. Happy to take questions at this stage. It's clear in the officer's report, the recommendation and the reasoning behind that recommendation to support the proposal. Happy to take questions.
Right, thank you, members. Open to you. Questions? Anybody want to start the ball rolling? Right, Councillor Lees.
Yeah, is there any proposals for what it's being clad with, Chris, or is it obviously the brickwork's in quite a state? I presume it's being clad and re-roofed. Is it the existing building? That's just my two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, I mean, at this stage, without knowing ultimately the end users, I mean, the intention is to reuse the building. So the alterations are fairly limited in terms of modifications and alterations to windows and doors. Existing brickwork to be retained and made good. and then we've got the existing roof that might need to be repaired and replaced. But the alterations are limited to what's described in the application.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lees. Councillor Buttle. Councillor Buttle.
Sorry about that. I'm pressing the wrong buttons. Yeah, I received a letter from someone called Fisher German, who are the agents for this, which was kind of, I don't know, it sort of felt vaguely pushy. Is this a normal thing to do for agents to approach a planning committee in advance, or is this unusual?
I don't think that's relevant to the debate. We're asking questions on the planning application. I think it's a normal course for people to send emails to members of the planning committee. But I mean, if it's a question relating purely to the planning application, then I will allow it. But I don't think it's prudent to this application. So I'll move on to Councillor Fitzherbert.
No, I have got a question as well.
Well, in which case, then please.
So I'll launch into it then. Is there any way we can stop this becoming a cafe that's open all day for the poor old residents who are stuck next door?
A good question. You'll note from the officer's report and the recommended conditions that we are looking to restrict opening hours. And I think reflecting on where the building is and the historic use, although it's operated without restriction, when it was a petrol filling station and latterly as a depot building, there was no restrictions on opening hours. However, this is in a location which is fairly remote from any settlement, and it's entirely reasonable in our view because the reliance will mainly be on passing trade. I'd have thought for cafe use and the retail element. It's entirely reasonable to condition hours of use in that respect to when that trade's likely to be at its greatest, and that would be not during the normal working day. Hence why we've recommended the condition that restricts opening hours that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to move this, Chair, because though I'm not sure if the cafe will succeed, that's not our affair really. But on a planning issue, I think, as Chris has explained, it's only minimal alterations and it's controlling the hours of the cafe. So I'd like to move this, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Black. Councillor Burfield.
Thank you, Chair. Are we in the debate now, or are we still on questions?
We're still on questions. We're still on
questions. Sorry, Chair.
It's all right, Peter. I've got two people more on my list. I'll
Right.
just put it down as you've moved it anyway. So.
Yeah, I would like to speak in the debate, so I'll wait my turn.
Right. Okay, then the last person I've got on my list for question is Councillor Pauly.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Considering that we get dark at about 4 o'clock in the winter, are we going to put any conditions on about flashing neon signs for cafes and that type of thing, so that the neighbours haven't got that worry to think about?
Yeah. Illuminated advertisements are likely to require express advertisement consent from the local planning authority, so we would have control over such advertisements if members were minded to support officer recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've got a question really, and it's a question of procedure really. I know Councillor Slack has moved it, but I was on the planning committee, as I think he was, or may have been, in 17, and I don't understand. We had a hybrid application then, and I always thought that this site would become housing. That was the whole point of moving the tractor business to a bigger, more suitable shed for the thriving business it had. And I'm just thinking, has that been chucked away, the hybrid application?
No, just to clarify on that question, Councillor Fitzherbert, the application that's before us is completely separate to the original hybrid application. So this bit of land didn't form part of that original application. It did originally, but it was taken out because there were concerns about the loss of existing employment through the redevelopment and loss of the original depot building. So this has come forward as a separate standalone full application. So it was never part of the original hybrid application as approved.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I'm going to move into debate. Councillor Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I do have concerns about this application, particularly in relation to the café element. I do note in the report that the environmental health team have raised no objections, but as with many applications that we look at, we've got no idea at this moment in time when we're asked to vote for this application as to how odour control in particular is going to be managed. And if it's not managed properly, it would be a nuisance to the neighbours. I mean, there could be extractor fans going all day long, and I am particularly worried about that. But I'm also worried about the fact that it would appear that from speaking to people who know this road really well, the A515, most of the traffic are heavy goods vehicles. Now, as far as I could see, the applicant is trying to deter heavy goods vehicles from using this cafe by signage, but that couldn't be enforced, surely. Now, if there are lots and lots of heavy goods vehicles wanting to use this cafe 7 days a week, and they can't get in the car park, then they will park on the road. And that could be a danger. But it also could be a nuisance again to the neighbours by having heavy goods vehicles parked on that road. And in fact, anybody who takes over this cafe, I would suggest are not going to turn down business from anywhere. So my fear is that this cafe will become a truck stop. And for that reason, I can't support the application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burfoot. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like us to note that the submissions from Councillor Allison and Councillor Morley, who are more local to the site than the rest of us, because they live there and they represent that ward and the neighbouring ward. You know, I asked the question, we make height restrictions so HGVs can't get in there? You know, the barrier things that sometimes we have at car parks and things. But I mean, I've been trying to think of planning reasons to overturn officers' recommendation here, and I'm struggling because my main objection it's the spirit of the hybrid application and the planning committee of 2017. I never dreamt, or foolishly possibly, that this could be before us now. I note Councillor Burfoot's points about the cafe proposals, but the offices, think how many offices are available in Ashbourne and possibly that I can think of now. I don't know about Matlock and Wirksworth, but I'm like Councillor Burfoot, really not happy about this at all. And I think, you know, there's not many people putting in submissions supporting it, are there?
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzherbert. Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. Really, yeah, I'd just like to reinforce what Councillor Burfoot said, actually, that the more I consider this myself, I use that road all the time. I live very close to that road. There are a lot of HGVs, and the more I think about this, that does really concern me. And I think when you look at what's happened in Ashbourne at the co-op, where the co-op was built by the main road into Derby, and there's not adequate parking there for lorries, and we've had some really serious problems there with HGVs pulling up at the side of the road onto the grass verge to access the shops and the Greggs and so on that are up there. And I am now, the more I'm thinking about this, more increasingly concerned that would become an issue here as well. So yeah, I was initially thinking I would probably support this, but I'm now beginning to think perhaps not on that basis.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Archer. Councillor Donnelly.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Like some of the speakers have said already, I think concern myself and Councillor Lees, who know the road very well through many years through the fire service. It's a very, very busy road for HGVs, and it gets busier by the day. And for that reason, again, I think that it'd be rather dangerous if we did actually allow this to go through, because I think that, as Councillor Burford has said, you would find the overspill in the car park, and sooner or later you had people parking on a road which has got a couple of bad bends approaching just the top of the hill there. So I will not be supporting the application.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Buttle.
Hi. Yeah. I'm not a fan of this either. It's a fast road. I've pulled out of Oak Line a couple of times after going down there to have a look at it. It doesn't seem that it's got much in the way of local support, and it kind of just doesn't feel like it's making Derbyshire Dales a better place to be. So I don't think I'm going to support it either. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buttle. Councillor Lees.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Fitzherbert, I'm a bit confused, if you like. I thought it was all part of the hybrid application when, in years gone past, and the most recent one, when it came up to the committee, it was just the rear end of the application. I thought it was all part of one, not split up. But like other officers have said, other councillors have said, it can become a truck stop for overnight truckers leaving early in the morning, and it's a very, very dangerous pull-out, in which is probably most of the reasons why the Hallmark tractors moved further down the road for a better road layout, and I won't be supporting it, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's been moved by Councillor Slack. Does anybody want to second the motion? If nobody's wanted to second, then I'll speak against it. I will be seconding the motion. So I've got nobody else on the list. So it's been moved and seconded for approval as outlined in the report. Jason, can you please go to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Archer.
Against.
Councillor Archer.
He voted against.
All right. Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Bright.
Against.
Councillor Burfoot.
Against.
Councillor Buttle.
Against.
Councillor Donnelly.
Against.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
Against.
Councillor Froggatt.
Against.
Councillor Finesse.
Against.
Councillor Lees.
Against.
Councillor Pawley.
Against.
And Councillor Slack. Sorry, I didn't catch Councillor Slack.
I think he said 4. He didn't have his microphone on.
Right, okay. So that's 3 for and 10 against, Chair.
All right, so that's been lost. So now what I need is a motion for refusal. So would somebody like to put that motion forward?
I'll do it. I don't see why not.
I think Councillor Fitz. I presume Councillor Fitzherbert, if Councillor Buttle's willing to do that, are you willing to second that?
Thank you. Yes, please.
Right. Anybody else want to speak against it? No.
Yeah, probably, Chair.
Go on, Peter.
You're right. Yeah, I cannot see HGVs drawn in there. I think it's a bit of a fallacy. I know the site well, and HGVs won't stop there. I think it's a fallacy, to be honest, and I think they may appeal against it. Thank you, Chair.
We've had the vote.
Thank you very much. So now we'll move for the vote, and the vote is for refusal.
Councillor Atkins, can I just clarify what the reason for refusal is?
Yeah, yes. I mean, we would have to have a reason against it.
Okay.
Can the proposer or the seconder come up to some sort of reason why it should be refused in planning terms?
It feels unsafe to me, but I don't know. It's just a feeling I got from hanging about on Oak Lane. It felt like a very fast road. There was cyclists coming through. There was just.
They are not planning reasons for refusal. You have to come up with something a little more solid in planning terms.
Okay, well, could I take some advice from one of our officers as to what I mean in planning terms?
I think what I've gauged from the debate is that members are concerned about the highway safety implications of the proposed uses. What I'm concerned about is we haven't got any support from the county council and the local highway authority. They consider that the proposed uses are acceptable from a highway safety viewpoint, reflecting on the former use of the site as a depot. It was a depot for the repair of farm vehicles, often very large vehicles that were parked on the forecourt of that particular site. Now, we haven't got the backing of the highway authority. It doesn't mean you can't refuse the application on highway safety grounds, but I think they need to be clearly spelt out and articulating any reason for refusal.
I'm sorry, I don't really have the competence to tell you what particular P1Bs or whatever it is I'm standing against. So I guess I have to withdraw my application for refusal, and we can try someone else, perhaps.
May I suggest, if that finds both the mover and second, if they want to pull that, maybe we should defer it and go back and ask for some further report to be brought back to the committee for a further determination on the issues that you're raising.
That sounds like a fantastic idea.
Happy to support that.
So, Councillor Fitzherbert, are you willing to defer it?
I'm willing to defer it as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, and Councillor Butler, will you second that?
I will indeed.
Right, in which case then it's been moved and seconded for a deferral for a further report to be brought back to this committee on the questions that you'd outline on road safety and what have you. So I'll let the officers do what they need to do, but we just need to vote on to defer it. So if we'd like to move to the vote, Jason.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Atkin.
Against.
Councillor Bright.
For.
Councillor Burford.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
For.
Councillor Froggatt.
For.
Councillor Finesse.
For.
Councillor Lees.
For.
Councillor Pawley.
For.
And Councillor Slack.
Against. Okay.
10 for and 3 against, Chair.
So that is approval of a deferral and a report brought back to this committee at a later date. So that concludes the main substantive items on the agenda. Now there's a little bit of housekeeping. Item 6 is open and closed enforcement and investigations. John, Chris, is there anything that you two would like to add to that?
Nothing to add, Chair.
I've got Councillor Burfoot and Councillor Donnelly, so we'll start with Councillor Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. I am going back to the final application, actually, and I wonder whether my concerns about the environmental impact on the neighbouring residents in terms of arrangements for internal air extraction, odour control. Could we not ask the officers to actually get environmental health to ask the applicant exactly what their proposals are before we look at this again?
I think that was something that the officers would take back to environmental health. I'm sure Chris and his team will put that into the mix.
Thank you.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'll move the report.
Thank you very much. That find a seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, just show a hand. That's carried. And the last bit is appeals report. And as you've noticed, there is no, it's just a list of what we've got going on at the moment. And there's no written representations or reports from the planning. So that just needs moving for noting. So I'll move it for noting. Councillor Donnelly, second chair. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. That's been carried. Thank you very much, members, and thank you again to everybody that's watched online. And I hope to see you at the next meeting in October. So thank you very much. So goodbye, members of the committee.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.